Welcome to another edition of the Wise Take NFL Premium Wise Stream. We are doing this for free today, just covering the Monday slate. There's two games on a Monday that really, obviously doesn't happen often. A lot. I think it's every year, week one. So we're doing a special thing. Plus, we're glad to have Patio Joe back. He's back from the championship draft over in Vegas. We saw the periscopes, the proof of life tweets, all that great stuff. It was, it was cool. So, Patio Joe, welcome back, brother. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Recovering from this weekend. It was a very fun weekend. The Fantasy Football World Championships. My draft was good. It was fun to talk to. I met Dr. Roto. I met some people that I've never met before in the industry, so it was cool to say hi to them and meet them. Overall, though, it depends. I guess I don't know. I don't know what I was expecting. Sort of maybe something a little bit more grander, but it was still good. I still had a fun time. But yeah, it was definitely an experience, and I'm glad that I had other things planned. After the draft was done, my room was just amazing, as you guys all saw. And the funny thing about that is that my the bill was the only thing that they charged was the in-room service that we got, and that was it. So it was free basically, and that's what made it so nice. So I'm back now. Definitely have some other stories maybe we can tell on when we have a lot of big premiums. We can tell some a stripper story or here or two or there. So, but right now we'll just keep it to this short little slate. I got my Charger gear on. I'm ready for tonight, and I'm excited for tonight's slate. Obviously, off of yesterday, I did really well. Maybe I should do is make a lineup on Wednesday and then get cracked out for 3 days and then make my lineup on Sunday morning 10 minutes before the game and see what happens. But it seemed to work out. And the funny thing about that was, and I'll probably say it this whole week, was it was very important to nail the defense and the kicker. And so I nailed that with the Rams. And obviously I was texting you, I had Dan Bailey last night. So every field goal was that game script was perfect for me, only having Bailey. So yeah, I won about $600 yesterday off week one. Very happy with that. Very good momentum builder going into week two.
Oh yeah, man, that's awesome, man. Week one wasn't, everybody hypes up week one, and we usually see a lot of great game scripts because week one is usually the week that everybody's the most prepared for. Like obviously you have like wacky things, some guys still rusty, whatever, but usually these teams game plan the best. Like last year, the 49ers were the worst team in probably the league. But week one, they look like one of the best teams out there because they had the whole offseason to prepare for. And it wasn't what we all expected. It was a very low-scoring night. You had to have a select few guys. Like a lot of the guys that Patio Joe, you had mentioned, even on DraftKings cash games like Ertz, Hyde, and Gurley, all these guys, like they ended up being, yeah, they were pretty popular, pretty chalky, but they ended up coming through. And we talk about that in the NFL all the time. There's a ton of variance, but there is definitely less variance than in, like, baseball. There's still a ton, but it's definitely less than baseball. And we were all on the bandwagon of fading Le'Veon Bell. I didn't think that David Johnson would bust, but like that badly.
He got hurt, so.
But he got hurt, correct. And even so, he still got you something. Like, he didn't give you, what Le'Veon gave people, that was just, that probably hurt a lot of people's feelings. But what was your overall grasp of week one? Like what did you get from week one?
Yeah, well, from week one, at least the play that I think that, at least for me, that I was most proud of was Charles Clay. I got him at 10%. He went off for about like 54 yards, but he got a touchdown, and he just got like 2 or 3 times his value. That's what really helped. But I think week one, didn't watch as much as I wanted to, but I watched enough to know that it's just that. Like I said before going into it, we think we know, but we really don't when it comes to week one. If you would have bet the unders on this game, you would have won a lot of money in Vegas because all those games, they were a little bit underperforming. But, we've had weeks where week one, everybody blows up and everybody, overreacts too. So the worst thing that you can do in seasonal, at least, is to overreact over what happened yesterday. A lot of people did not do well. I mean, we could start off. We could go down position by position at who busted, and there's a lot of correlation, between the tight ends and the receivers that busted to the quarterbacks that busted. I said going into the week that quarterback, you needed to nail it, and you needed to nail defense and your kicker. And if you did those three things, you probably did okay. And when it came to week 1, this week, I mean, going into week 2, I can already say, it's going to be a lot different. There's so much more juicier matchups. There's going to be a lot more scoring. But yeah, that's what I thought about week 1, is that it was a little bit surprising that the chalk didn't do very as well, but it's week 1. You take it as a snapshot and everybody blows it up because it's the first week.
Yeah.
Nobody will look back on week 1 and remember it in 6 weeks.
Yeah, 100%. And which brings us, we still have week 1 to discuss. We're still going to, we're obviously going to break down the Monday night slate for New Orleans and Minnesota, and then obviously your Chargers. I keep on forgetting LAC, man. I was trying to set the filters on the projections, and I'm like, where the hell are the Chargers? Yeah. I'm like, Denver's right here. Where are the Chargers? And then I'm like, and why are the Clippers in here? Yeah. And of course, then I put 2 and 2 together. But yeah, man. So we're gonna break that down. But one thing, real quick, and we have another. We have a podcast coming up on Wednesday night, another live show for free for everybody to break down week 2. And I know you're not gonna be with us on that show, so I wanted to mention. I wanted to get your take. Like, what is gonna be your overall approach heading into week 2? Like to me, week 2 is like people always over exaggerate what they saw in week 1. Right. So what do you think the right approach is going into week 2?
The right approach is to stick with your process that you did for week 1 and not get too worried. I mean, just looking really quick. I mean, at week number 2, I'm looking at it and I'm seeing that there's some really good matchups. You got New England traveling down to New Orleans, and that's like the Coors Field of football. At least we think. And then you also got, I think, it's going to be decided on which way you want to go with the Sunday night hammer into, if you want to go the Sunday night hammer with the Green Bay and Atlanta game. So think about what you want to do with that. I think that you can stack that game right now off the bat. That's what I had. I kind of put just a quick lineup together earlier because I had a free ticket, and that's the way I went right now. Just at first look, what they did that I saw was is they did a really good job on FanDuel of pricing up the defenses already. The Raiders defense is the second defense, and they're 5,300 because they're facing the Jets at home. So they've already have made that apparent that that's the way that they're going to go. They're going to really price up these defenses. So right now I'm looking at Tampa Bay as a possibility, just as a value, and then maybe Phil Dawson as a kicker because they're going to be going into Indianapolis. Depending on what David Johnson does, you can see them passing more now that if he's out, which it looks like he's going to be out at least 8 to 12 weeks. That came down just recently. He might have a dislocated wrist. So then just first look, I'm looking at who's terrible against the tight ends, the Jets. So I'm going with Jared Cook, real quick. I mean, it's just, and then I feel like that's the value that opens me up with. I'm going with Hunt at running back right now, and then I got Tevin Coleman and Julio Jones paired with Matt Ryan. So it's a little bit different. Instead of Freeman, I'm going with Coleman. And then I got 2 receivers that I think are going to be big. I got the correlation play with Randall Cobb, and then I copped it off with Mike Evans, who's taken 2 weeks off, so he's ready to roll. So that's just a real quick look on how I might attack week number 2.
Man, that's great stuff. Guys, if you want more information on Patio Joe's week 2 outlook after he's done a little more of his research and everything like that, you can obviously be on the lookout this week for his Straight Cash Homie cash game article. Patio Joe is our cash game specialist over here at Wise Take, so you want to check it out. He also he drops a little GPP knowledge on you guys as well. He throws in some his friend Audie's picks.
Yeah.
Those of you who are part of the Wise Take member, you know who Audie is. And so yeah, and then obviously don't miss the Wise streams you get on Saturdays where we really dive into these games. But in the meantime, Joe, we do have a game today that we're going to break down for everybody watching. And so, you ready to get started?
Yeah.
All right, brother. So, first game, we obviously got New Orleans at Minnesota, and then we got your Chargers at Denver. So, a couple of things. We know New Orleans is a very fast-paced team. We know Minnesota is a team that has traditionally tried to rely more on its defense, we'll just say. And so then we have Denver, who had a surprisingly poor rushing defense last year. They couldn't stop anybody. Melvin Gordon's coming off a phenomenal year. Breakout year last year. Once Woodhead got hurt, there was nobody who benefited more than that dude. So so let's go position by position. We're just going to pull it up. I got quarterbacks pulled up on the Wise Take Premium Advanced cheat, stat sheet. This is a sheet, everybody, those of you watching, if you're not a member of WiseTech.com, this is one of the sheets that our members get access to. This is our advanced stat sheet. It's got locked headers, filters, whatever you need to see, projections for both FanDuel and DraftKings, and of course we have targets and all the other stats you might want. So because the show is free, we're covering the slate for free, I'm going to go ahead and put that on the screen so you guys can see as we go. So obviously the top two highest projected quarterbacks we have here are Drew Brees, number 1, Sam Bradford. We got Phillip Rivers on here, which I think is definitely interesting because we've seen high ceilings from Rivers and we know that they throw a lot. He's actually got the highest consistency rating coming in. And then of course we got Trevor Siemian, a guy that we're still waiting to see some stuff for. So Joe, what are your thoughts today, quarterback?
Well, you have to look at it as a short slate too. You know, I mean, the way I look at it is like quarterback. It's like, if you want to win, you got to pick the one guy. You know, you got 4 options. You can fit them all in. You find, you know, that's the thing. You're gonna have money left on the table. You have to take a stand on which way you think the games are gonna go. You have to kind of think which way you think Minnesota. If you think Minnesota's gonna shut down Brees, and you need to fade Brees, and you need to play the Minnesota defense. My personal belief is tonight, if I want to win, I'm gonna fade Brees. That's just me. I'm not, and because I think that he probably has a high ceiling. The guy that probably will be the lowest owned will be Siemian. Nobody will go there because if the Chargers make the Broncos throw the ball, Chargers will win that game. So I'm thinking my guys would be Phillip Rivers or Sam Bradford. If I was going with a cash game, which, by the way, people don't play cash tonight. I'm not. Okay? So straight cash homie is telling you do not play cash. Okay? I know. It's just it's too hard. It's too much variance in a 2-game slate. Play GPPs. You got to get off the grid. You need to. So in my mind, I know Denver's the number 1 passing defense. People don't realize when Keenan Allen is healthy, that offense moves a lot better. There are so many weapons that the Chargers are going to throw at them today, along with Melvin Gordon. Rivers knows this offense very, very well, and if they're healthy, they will put up points. First game last year against Kansas City, they were blowing them out at halftime. Right before half, Keenan Allen tears his ACL. They lose the game. Boom, they're it. You know, so I'm telling you, they're healthy. They will put up points tonight. And then Bradford, I always say this. Saints have a bad defense. Everybody loves Diggs this year. Everybody loves Thielen. They love Rudolph. Everybody loves Dalvin Cook. So who's going to be getting them the ball? Sam Bradford. So he's the one that's going to reap the benefits. So tonight, I think that my 2 quarterbacks are Rivers and Bradford, just because of just trying on ownership level alone. I think Brees will be the highest owned. Maybe with Bradford, I think they'll be tied, and just because Brees used to be the Ben Roethlisberger with bad road splits. People don't realize that he was okay the last few years, but he's had some bad performances on the road. People know that this Minnesota defense can return punts, they can intercept and do pick sixes. If they can get to Brees, they will fluster him, and I think Minnesota's going to win the game tonight.
Yeah, man, I'm definitely with you. I'm also with you on the Drew Brees thing. Like last year, I think he had just a couple games where he played decent on the road. But for the most part, he's still following that script. He's certainly, and like it's not just like a fluke thing. There's a lot that goes into it. When he's at home, he's playing in a dome. He's playing on turf. He's a short quarterback. So like all these little things take into account. You know what I mean? And his receivers are a split second quicker. And so, like, don't get me wrong, I would take Drew Brees on the road over a lot of quarterbacks in the league. Don't get me wrong. I love Drew Brees. But this Minnesota defense has proven enough to me that that they're good enough to where I don't really want to pick on them, especially not when I know Drew Brees is going to be chalk, and he's the most expensive quarterback on the slate on DraftKings. That's 7-2.
Most on FanDuel
too, right? 8-6 too. So it's not even really by a small margin. He's he's.
I mean, on DraftKings, he is so much more overpriced than Bradford and Rivers. It's ridiculous. I mean, you'd almost want to fade him because people just normally will go, well, I have this money level. Why don't I just play Breeze now?
Yeah, people won't want to leave money on the table.
Boom, just go up. And the way I look at it, tonight you're going to have to get off the grid to win. Last year, first opening game, I played the 2-game slate. I don't know what I did, but I remember I started like a second running back or something, and he wound up doing good, and that's why I won. You know, it was the guy that was lowest owned. You know, you only have so many options, so you got to pick it right tonight. And it's, you know, and you got to know that everybody's going to be going certain ways.
Yeah.
So how can you be different?
Yeah. Definitely agree with that. So I think I'm with you though. I think I'm on the Fade Breeze campaign at tournaments tonight. I'm going to take a hard look at Bradford. We want to take note that Dalvin Cook is there, so we wonder how many touches. But remember, like you're not necessarily like the way you approach these small slates is very different. Like a play that maybe you wouldn't have any interest in on a main slate, you now have to consider on a small slate because the point margin is so small. So it's so drastic. Like one receiver is going to eat, and chances are one receiver that's in a good spot is going to do terrible for you today. So it's a matter of putting that puzzle together. One bad play can mean everything, you know. So I think I'm with you. So Bradford, and it sounded like Bradford and Rivers were your two options. I would imagine Rivers is going to be. I would think he would be a little less owned just because obviously people know that New Orleans defense is bad. So I would assume that Rivers is a play that I don't think is foolish at all because, like you said, they are finally healthy, and Denver is going to have to respect Melvin Gordon tonight. So I definitely think Rivers would be the more contrarian way to go, but that's not the only way to differentiate your lineup. Now, obviously, Semien. Now, I want to talk about Semien because he's the only guy that we didn't mention, so obviously he's a guy that we're not too fond of, and rightfully so. His numbers last year were terrible. But the reason I bring him up is because you've been kind of touting to me all offseason about your Charger defense, about how they've improved and how you expect big things from them this year. So what are your thoughts on Semien against your Charger defense?
Well, okay, so, I mean, obviously we could take this another way, obviously, when we talk about the receivers, but the way I look at it is that Trevor Semien is not a quarterback that throws the ball. Jason Verrett, Casey Hayward are the best cornerback duo in the NFL. I will stand by that. They were awesome last year. Verrett tore his ACL, and he was shutting people down until he tore his ACL. Hayward was the number 2. He moved to the number 1, still shut everybody's number 1 down. So now that they're both healthy, they're both back. I don't see if they have to throw the ball and they got those 2 cornerbacks. Chargers also have Joey Bosa, Melvin Ingram on either side rushing Semien. So the way I see Denver winning tonight is by running the ball and by picking their and showing short passes. If they have to get into a shootout with the Chargers, which I doubt is going to happen. That's why I just don't think Simeon's upside is there. I don't think there's much upside. I don't think he can get into a passing match with Rivers.
Gotcha. Makes a lot of sense. All right, let's move on and talk about some of these running backs here, Joe. Talk to me about. We got a couple interesting scenarios here. We got Melvin Gordon of your Chargers. He's the top option. Phenomenal season last year. We got Dalvin Cook, a rookie from Minnesota. He's replacing Adrian Peterson. But again, there's a few running backs over there also, so we don't know how much they're going to rely on Cook. We got Mark Ingram, who had a very inconsistent year last year, but his floor and the ceiling that we're showing tells you everything. His floor of 2.46 and a ceiling of 2101 on 07 or so. So that kind of tells you the story with him. And then obviously we got C.J. Anderson, Latavius Murray's in the mix, and the most intriguing part, narrative-wise, Adrian Peterson. His debut for the New Orleans Saints, there's been reports that he's going to split work with Ingram. They haven't really said much of how they're going to use him, but he's playing his old team, playing in Minnesota, week 1. So what are your thoughts for running back?
Running back, I think I like Dalvin Cook tonight, and I like C.J. Anderson. C.J. Anderson runs better at home. So, like I said, if Denver wants to win this game, they're going to have to do it on the ground, and I think that's where you can probably make some hay against this Charger defense. You can run the ball against them. I think you can play Melvin Gordon too. I'm not saying I don't. I think Cook and Anderson are my two top targets today, just because maybe on a ownership level or something like that. Gordon, I realized Denver. I want to see Gordon do it this year. I know he got a lot of opportunity, but a lot of it was his yard per carry was not that high, so it was more of a volume thing. So hopefully he can get that volume. I don't know how the Chargers, if they can run the ball with Gordon, obviously he's going to be the play of the night. They're going to keep running him. So I would probably pair, if you want, go Cook and Anderson, or go Anderson and Gordon, go back to back. That's not bad. If you think it's going to be a low scoring game, which could be possible, those would be the two plays. Everybody else, I'm not really on. If I had to go somewhere off the board, I'm not really picking. I want to see a game of how they're going to divvy up the carries between Ingram and Peterson before I make a choice on who to select as my my number one. If you wanted to go off the grid where nobody was going to have anybody and maybe could win, maybe because nobody has heard about him, is Latavius Murray. Everybody's playing Dalvin Cook. Everybody's into Dalvin Cook. But what if Murray just vultures a couple touchdowns at the goal line, and he's the one with the play at 6,100? You got to think about it. You got to put him in there. And then everybody else, Jamal Charles, I guess if you wanted to fly, I don't even know how much he's gonna play, but nobody else really would be. Brandon Oliver's not going to see much time, and everybody else is just not. It's not worth it.
Yeah, man, I think that makes a lot of sense. I like that Latavius Murray call. We're talking about tournaments here, and so when you're talking about tournaments, you got to keep in mind those guys, especially on a small slate. Like I won't take a touchdown vulture guy on the main slate just because I think he's a touchdown vulture, because you're not getting much with him. But if Dalvin Cook gets you X amount of yards at whatever price, and then Latavius Murray does it for X amount cheaper, he does the same thing just because he got the actual touchdowns, then you're in a much better position, and your lineup build overall is probably different from the field. So I like that call, man. I definitely do. We expect Dalvin Cook to get a lot of attention, and we expect him to be popular. And I don't think he's going to have necessarily a bad game against this Minnesota defense, but like you said, I can see them bringing in the vet and giving him the touchdowns. I could just see it happen. He had a decent year for the Raiders last year. It wasn't that bad. So definitely a scenario I see. So I found it interesting. It sounds like, in a vague way, like you're not talking about a complete fade of Melvin Gordon, but you are saying that you don't believe that Gordon is a must play tonight. You mentioned C.J. Anderson against your Chargers, which I thought was interesting. What are your thoughts? And of course, I know you said with Ingram and AP, it's just a situation where you need to see how it plays out before you can really consider investing in those guys. So that would leave us with what? Cook, Murray, C.J. Anderson, and Gordon as like the four plays that are in contention for you. So, it's in terms of a game scripting environment, which one of these guys do you think, from a touches perspective, who's the number 2 over in Denver behind Anderson? Do we know? Is it Booker? Is it still Devontae Booker? Yeah, right.
He's hurt though.
Oh, he's hurt.
I think. Yeah.
So then,
I think it's either Charles. They did sign Jonathan Williams, and then they have D'Angelo Henderson.
Oh, Jamal Charles. I forgot all about him.
Yeah.
Wow.
Jamal Charles, but I think if game script wise, the guy that will probably be rid the most will probably be C.J. Anderson. If they win the game, they're just going to give him the ball at the end of the game. That's why I like him the most, because he's a guy that's guaranteed. Now, if the Chargers are winning at the end of the game, they will be giving it to Gordon too.
Right.
So I don't have a problem with going with their lineup, with going with Gordon and Anderson as your running backs tonight.
Yeah. No. That makes a lot of sense. Gordon, and there are a lot of situations where it's not like a proven thing. Nothing in this world is proven, but not proven, but guaranteed. But there are a lot of takes out there and I think there's been studies that there is a small correlation between opposing running backs. So I do think that's, there is a game script where both running backs are pretty much doing all the work and the game gets nasty and gritty. And we can kind of see that. And I definitely think Melvin Gordon is going to be the top option for everybody. So, I think that kind of opens up your mind and your view as to, it kind of points out to you that there certainly are other options today. even on a 2-game slate. All right, Joe, let's talk about wide receivers, brother. Talk us through it.
Wide receivers, all right. So I'm just going to go right to where the guy that I love that I think will win somebody a tournament tonight if he comes through, Travis Benjamin. He is my sneaky play of the night. I don't know how sneaky he's going to be, but I think he's going to be very sneaky. The guy had a great preseason. He is the fastest guy on the Chargers. He caught 150 yards in the preseason, 2 bombs. If you're going to win a GPP tonight, you need to have a player catch a bomb like that. I don't think Allen or Tyrell Williams are going to get away from these cornerbacks that much. They're going to be productive, but that's why I think Benjamin is the guy that will win somebody a tournament if he goes off tonight. That's my Monday night sleeper for sure. I've liked him all year. I've liked him just coming in, and I just think tonight, if you got to get off the grid, that's the guy you got to go with. On the other side, obviously you got to pick 2 other guys. Obviously a one-off with Michael Thomas, I'm cool with that. He's going to have Minnesota's number 1 corner, so it doesn't. I don't like it. I'm fading all myself. I'm fading all the Broncos receivers just because I like Hayward and Verrett too much. I'll go somewhere else. I do like Stephon Diggs and I like Adam Thielen. Probably Thielen a little bit more just because of people are going to go to Diggs because he's the higher guy and they can fit in both. I think Thielen will get just as many targets as Diggs. The other guy that might win somebody tonight if you want a one-off for the Saints is Ted Ginn Jr. He's the number 2 guy. They liked him as the number 2 guy. They weren't that pissed off that Snead got suspended. They knew he was going to get suspended. They're all in on Ginn. They really, really like him. So probably if I had to rank them, it's hard to rank who I want number 1, but I like guys like Diggs, Ginn, Thielen, Benjamin, Allen, and Michael Thomas. I'm fading the Broncos in some ways, and then in some ways, because I'm fading the Broncos, it turns me on more to even the Chargers D. Because I'm kind of having to put a stand somewhere. So you're going to have to find a D, and usually in these 4-game slates, if you find a D, you almost have to fade the whole team, the other team that they're playing. I mean, you can maybe have a one-off, but that's it.
Yeah, for sure. I'm definitely with you. The most common, most popular stack you're going to see tonight is going to be Michael Thomas and Drew Brees. That combination is going to be the most. I do think that Diggs, like you said, I think he'll be pretty popular too. I do have some interest in your boy Keenan Allen, though I obviously he's not sneaky. People are excited about him coming back, and I am too. But I agree that opens up things for these other receivers. That's really what him being back. That's the big thing it does is it opens up room for his other receivers. Keenan Allen is way more physical and bigger than both Tyrell Williams, Travis Benjamin, and even Dontrell Inman, who they were working with last year. So they now have that big threat, a guy they have to watch on the field. So that's going to open things up. Now, and also with Travis Benjamin, I was looking around at some of the depth charts, and I think that they have Tyrell Williams listed technically on a lot of these depth charts as the number 2. But make no mistake about it, the Chargers will play Travis Benjamin. He will have a bunch of plays, and one of the things he's best at, like you said, Joe, is those big bombs. And that's kind of what we're looking for as an off-the-wall kind of receiver that nobody else is really looking at or nobody else is going to play for whatever reason, who catches that big bomb, and that's really going to be how you differentiate your lineup. Wide receiver is going to be the spot where most likely it could make or break your night. Not necessarily with min cashing, but like winning a slate. It's going to be a wide receiver core because there's so much. This is the most variance right here. Wide receivers, the most variance. Coverage, we have to worry about the quarterback. It's very dependent on another person. It's like, you know what I'm saying? So, like, this is where you want, and there's more options here. You get 3 of them, and there's a bunch on every team. So, this is where you want to get a little different here. But I like the calls. I like the calls. Last year, we saw Stephon Diggs had an 11.9% workload. I'm just looking for Thielen had a 9.7. One thing I want to point out, if our projections have Stephon Diggs at like 15.94, Thielen's at 13.14 for DraftKings, of course, was projections. He is not far behind. So definitely, if you're gonna play Diggs, make sure you hedge in some of your other lineups and you take some Thielen shares as well. You don't want to leave that guy out. Matter of fact, I'm curious of what his ADOT was. Let me just check that real quick. I'm very curious.
Yeah, it seems to me with Thielen and Diggs, what I want to watch, what makes me want to go to Thielen more is that they moved Diggs from the slot to the outside this year.
Right.
So and from what I gather in the preseason, he had a little bit of trouble with it. So I want to see him play the outside better. That's why I think Thielen's going to get a lot of targets tonight.
No, I think that's a great call. So I'm looking here, and it looks like Thielen's. This is what I like about Thielen tonight is the ADOT difference. So Stephon Diggs was the #1 target last year, but his ADOT, his average depth of target, was 10.3 yards. Thielen's was 14.3. So if you talk about tournaments, you're talking about upside and ceilings. Thielen, in my opinion, his is up there. I'm not saying that Diggs isn't. We saw a monster game last year. I think it was week 1 from Diggs, and that was back when nobody knew about him. Now everybody knows about him, and so I think I'm with you. Guys like Travis Benjamin, Ted Ginn, and Adam Thielen, the guys with the higher ADOTs. These are certainly the guys that we want to make sure we have shares of tonight. Let's move on to tight end, Joe. Tell me about some tight ends.
Tight end, I think Kyle Rudolph leads the board. In my thinkings, he has the easiest matchup of the week against teams covering tight end. New Orleans is terrible. If he's healthy, roll with Kyle Rudolph. In tournaments, obviously, look, the big thing tonight, they're going to think they want to get Antonio Gates that record. If all he needs is 1 touchdown, he breaks the record for touchdowns by a tight end. So if you're wanting to go with that script tonight, you can. I just don't know how much volume Gates is going to get. Hunter Henry's another guy that I think he might get more targets than Gates, but let's see if he gets in the end zone. I think they might be about evenly owned tonight just because everybody's going with the Gates narrative. And as for, let's see, I guess Fleener has more upside now just because of Snead being out. And I think that basically you're just going to go with me. You're going to go with Rudolph. You might go a little bit of Gates and maybe some Fleener or Henry. But Denver doesn't have anybody you're really going to look at. But maybe that's the type of person when you're looking at him that's going to win because you picked Virgil Green and he's terrible, but he catches a touch. You know what I mean? So you don't have much options. You got Rudolph, Henry, Fleener, or Gates. I mean, where are you going to go? How are you going to get off the grid? It's kind of hard because who else is there? So you're hoping for something weird. I mean, guys like Huna Manauni, he might catch something weird, or Josh Hill. You know what I mean? And that's why, guys, if you're playing also tonight, try and get in some like a single entry kind of thing, so you won't get those weird lineups on multi entries. Because guys that do the MMEs tonight, they can get almost every base they want.
Yeah, it's true. Definitely a great point. Single entry tournaments. Plus, you're less inclined to tie because we see on these small slates, we see a lot of ties, and they're like,
yeah, FanDuel has this one tournament tonight that's like 400,000 entries or something, and you can win 200 grand.
Oh God!
Like, what is it? I don't understand. Like, how can you win that with a weird lineup? You have to get off the grid. You know, like it's just not. It's so weird. Look, 300,000 entries, $4 entry. Like it's 200K to first. Like, man, somebody's gonna win it. I know, but damn. Fuego, how many entries you got in there? I know Fuego's got 150. You're in there, Fuego. All right. Thanks for joining us, by the way.
Yeah, Fuego. It's good to see you, buddy. Hope all is well, my friend. Always good to see you. But yeah, man, I think Hunter Henry has a case on DraftKings. Fuego made a good point, actually. He said, no, they'd rather give him the record at home. I don't necessarily – I think if the spot is there, they'll just take it because they want to get it out of the way and kind of move on with Hunter Henry going forward, I think. But on DraftKings, it's obviously a much more significant of a PPR site. So I do think Hunter Henry will get his share of targets. With that said, we know that Rudolph – we know Rudolph is going to be the most popular, and that's because – rightfully so. He's got the highest workload at all the tight ends. He's extremely high targeted last year by Bradford, who played pretty much all the season. So I think Hunter Henry won't be as popular as maybe he should because of the Gates narrative. And then, of course, Kobe. Listen, I hate to say it, but Kobe Fleener's in play. I'm not really crazy about playing him all the time, but we know that the defense is pretty good, and we expect there to be some pressure on Breeze. So then you would think there'd be a lot of throwing to the running backs and the tight ends because they're the quickest options, they're closest to the quarterback. So he's certainly in play as well. All right, so we don't have the stat sheets for the rest, but let's talk about some defenses, and at the end we can touch on a couple kickers.
Well, there's only 4. So
there's only 4.
It's basically, why don't we touch on it now? I mean,
let's do it.
I would probably pair, just if you want like a little bit of the team, any kicker will do tonight. I mean, literally. They got the Young Hoku. Have you heard about this guy?
Dude, that dude is kicking like crazy shit, man.
Yeah, he's a trick kicker or whatever. I don't care. You can kick trick kicks all you want. Kick a 50-yarder. That's all I want.
I like that.
One thing I will say, if I was leaning, I would maybe lean towards a kicker in the Denver or the Chargers game. Strictly on the fact is the kicks can go longer. McManus can kick a 55 or 60-yarder in Denver because the air is thinner up there. So Forbath and Lutz, you can go with them too. It's at this point, it's basically do your lineup and fill in whatever kicker you have left with the money because you'll have whatever money you'll have left.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much right on the nose. I'm with that completely. I also like the kickers in these kind of game scripts, especially when you know like that Denver has a decent red zone defense in those situations, because that means that they're going to have to kick more. I usually like to look for conservative coaches. Like Santos is a kicker I usually love playing, although I will admit Andy Reid's approach against the Patriots, they were much more aggressive, so that could change. But I typically like to follow coaching trends and things like that. So I'm definitely with you, especially on Denver. They're prepared to kick a lot. Simeon is their quarterback, and they still want to do well. They're expecting to kick a lot. So I think that's a great point. Question is, can they get far enough down the field? But let's talk about some defenses, and then we'll get out of here because we got a baseball show coming up.
Yeah, I know. We have a baseball show, and I'm going to do a switcheroo. I'm going to change, too. It'd be nice. Anyways, it's picking a defense tonight is just basically going to be who do you think's going to win the game? And what kind of game if you think it is. If you think Denver's going to win a game, they're going to win an ugly game. So you want McManus, you want Anderson, and you want the Denver defense. Those are the 3 that you want, in my opinion. If you think the Vikings are going to win the game, I think the Vikings defense might be the sneaky defense because everybody sees this great high-powered Saints offense coming in, and they think it's going to be a shootout. But we all, like I said before, we all know this Vikings defense can put up some great performances, and Breeze can put up some big, donuts, really bad games. So, and then my thing is I also think you can go to the Chargers defense. I think those 3 defenses you can play. The Chargers defense, if you think that they're going to stop, Simeon's not going to be able to throw, and they're going to stop the run, and they're going to win the game, then you're going to want the Chargers defense. So I think those are the 3 guys. Another thing is, if you want, here's another way to get off the grid. Find your defense. Find the guy that's going to be returning kicks. Hopefully he was a receiver. That's the way to do it. Maybe if he returns the kick, you get double points with the receiver returning the kick, and you get the Vikings D with the double points. Besides that, the Saints is the only defense I would not play tonight.
There we go. So there you have it, guys. That's our quick breakdown. Only 2 games, not much to discuss, but we stretched it out. We talked about enough. Yeah. That was Patio Joe. He does our cash game stuff. Expect his article coming out. We got a bunch of podcasts. We just lost our MMA podcast with Wig Splitter, a.k.a. at Jeff Poe. Guys, sign up, wisetake.com. Sign up for NFL. We got some baseball weekly passes if you want to ride out baseball with us, but we're going to have MLB. We got MMA. We got some NASCAR articles, all kinds of stuff. Come join us. Use promo code #HooDieWho and get 10% off of any package. But come check us out. We'll get more reported Patio Joe's takes, some of Paulie D's. We got a great staff. We got Josh, a couple live finalists from baseball. Great team, great community. So that's going to do it for us, Joe. I appreciate you making time. We got to get ready. We have an MLB live stream for our members only, so that's what we're going to do next at 5:30. But subscribe to the YouTube channel if you like what we do. You'll get notified for any free things that we do, any live streams, all that kind of stuff that are free. You'll be notified. So do that for us. Hit us up on Twitter. You can find me at CK_013. You could find Joe at Patio Joe Ref. That's REF. But anyway, for Joe, from myself, the entire Wise Take Nation, thanks for hanging out with us. And as always, good luck.
Go Bolts!